Based on evolving intelligence, Russia may be planning a cyber attack against us.
Texas and Oklahoma saw record temperatures.
In a gathering of migrants this size, one hears the full cross-section of problems in Latin America, from economic ruin and political instability to climate change and COVID.
Non-traditional security threats are not a new concept. Elements like climate change, pandemics, irregular migration, of course, even, I would argue, human trafficking, and then more recently, the nefarious implications of emerging technologies could all be subsumed under this category. They are threats of a, as the name says, non-military nature, so non-traditional, not where we're used to seeing security and defense issues stem from, but rather from a more, let's say, development, economic or social cause. That's where they pop up. Because of the exacerbation of climate change, also its impact on societies in this non-traditional aspect that can have security implications. So economic disruptions in some cases because of the climate change's effect on supply chains, potentially growing food insecurity or resource scarcity in some cases. Just take into account, for example, the evolution of the internet, which has led to a rise in cybersecurity threats as a result of the unpredictability and lack of security of the networks that we operate on. So the concept itself is not new, which points to the fact that these threats have existed for a very long time, right? We've been talking about climate change, for example, since the 70s and 80s.
As president, I have a responsibility to act with urgency and resolve when our nation faces clear and present dangers. And that's what climate change is about.
What are emerging potential threats on the horizon that you think people haven't even started thinking about yet?
Biothreats. So I think that is definitely an area of increasing and emerging concern for the U.S. military as well as allies and partners, just because of the potentially destructive impact, fundamentally destructive impact it can have. Of course, the evolution of our biological knowledge can present incredible opportunities. Of course, our ability to break down the stuff of life, literally. It can also, of course, be used for nefarious purposes and can be used to attack societies and create and solve chaos.
And how do you see traditional weapons being coupled with non-traditional threats in warfare?
Watching, again, the Ukraine war very closely, it was very concerning to see how Russia basically weaponized food to achieve its objectives on the battlefield, with implications, again, not only for Ukraine, but for a whole host of other countries around the world.
Ukraine, the breadbasket of the world, grows enough food to feed 400 million people, all of a sudden it's taken off the table. That was on top of COVID, the economic ripple effect that placed upon the poorest of the poor around the world, with climate shocks around the world and conflict.
That is I think, raising alarm bells to me that may be replicated in the future. And so understanding how that may happen is really important.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about U.S. reaction to some of these non-traditional threats. How can the Pentagon or the U.S. government at large anticipate a threat, and are there different alarms that should be sounding?
It starts with, I think, a very good intelligence picture and situational awareness picture of these threats.
The assessment continues to focus on a number of key global and transnational threats, including global health security, transnational organized crime, the rapid development of destabilizing technologies, climate, migration, and terrorism. I raise these because they pose challenges of a fundamentally different nature to our national security than those posed by the actions of nation states, even powerful ones like China and Russia.
So we need to be, I think, both aware of them, but also measured in our response so as to, as I was mentioning earlier, respond not in a securitized fashion, kind of the classic, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, but in a whole of government approach where we address their worst impacts, while at the same time investing in generally what are the structural causes of so many of them, and economic inequality, lack of inclusion, lack of investment in our environmental sustainability, and so on. And so I think this is a good opportunity and a good moment to invest more in information sharing, especially, and then at the US level, I think build the right structures to cooperate more with the private sector especially.